Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jack Kelly from Office Ready Tech. For those of you who aren't aware, Office Ready Tech are a partner for landlord and workspace operators. We help align all aspects of your technology from deployment, scoping, all the way through to management in operation. That's Office Ready Tech. Today, we're joined by Dan Drogman, Joe Lee, and Ollie Knight. Obviously, Dan Drogman, thank you for having us today. Dan, CEO and co-founder of Smart Spaces, grew Smart Spaces from, I believe, a booking platform for the Marriott Hotel in 2017 to everything we see around us today. So that's an incredible achievement. Thanks for having us. We've got Joe Lee, MD from General People. General People are an operator of SME workspace in urban locations, just getting ready to launch Woolworth Town Hall. Joe, previous to that, was working as head of operations at Uncommon, so brings a wealth of operational and flex experience. And then joining us finally, we've got my old colleague and boss, Ollie Knight. Ollie joins us from Landsec, where he's head of workplace. Landsec, for anyone who don't know, are a FTSE 100 REITs. They've got 22 million square feet of portfolio valued at over £10 billion. Ollie's held a number of roles there in his 10 years, including launching Myo, their flexible brand. And Ollie currently sits on the board and oversees their workplace portfolio, which is also valued at over £6 billion. So that's the intros. We'll jump straight in. So question one for Ollie. In the article I wrote just supporting the panel, which I assume everyone here has read and absolutely loved, I spoke about how agility can be a superpower. But how does a business the size of Landsec manage to stay agile and sort of respond to the market demands and changes?
Thanks, Jack. Just checking the mic. So everyone hear me okay? Thank you very much for having me. Landsec is a big business in terms of asset value. Some quite big numbers being thrown out there. But I guess in reality, we're quite a small business in terms of people. So our workplace portfolio is big in terms of footprint. But actually, we have about 120 people working in that business unit. So we're actually pretty lean. And that does have its advantages, obviously, in terms of the ability to be quite agile, even though we're dealing with big scale. I think number one is actually understand the customer. So we spend a lot of our time thinking about what is it the customer, what are their priorities, what are their challenges, what are the things that they're thinking about into the future. And actually, all the solutions need to be solving problems for customers or for ourselves. And so that really drives a lot of our thinking, but also means that we try and stay ahead of the curve and instead ahead of the market expectations. I guess second to that is, having a great team, state the obvious, really important, have them empowered. But also from a tech perspective, making sure we've got an internal key business partner from a tech perspective who can actually then understand our business priorities and start to look at how those solutions then play into that.
And Dan, I suppose expanding on that, as you're a partner to Landsec too, is that how you work with your partners? Do you find you provide agility for them, especially where tech's concerned, obviously, and your ability to integrate?
Yeah, certainly. I think one of our clients referred to us as the Savile Row suit tailor for workplace apps. And I think that's what a business like Landsec needs. It's got a strong identity and, the quality of the buildings they create needs the same technology. And I don't think that's a cookie cutter approach. I think it needs its own app. And if you see Smart Spaces sits very much in the background, it's powering the Landsec app. It's very much the Landsec experience app. And I think that's where, you need a Savile Row suit. And I think what we've been able to do with Landsec is leverage our partnership with the ecosystem partners here, such as HID, and deploy wallet-based access to the buildings, which is so sticky. Like literally, you can have one person in the company download the app, but as soon as their colleagues see them use the app to access the office, all the others come. It's so much easier to advertise and get adoption when you have the base technology and the user experience so streamlined and so frictionless. And so, yeah, I think really the strategy from Landsec is to get adoption. And that's what we've done in the short time we've had the app live.
Nice. Question for you, Joe. So how important have partnerships been in enabling growth at the flex operations you've been at, like General People now, and obviously Uncommon before that especially?
I mean, critical, really. I've joined both of those companies at the very, very early stages. Team are very lean. And then everybody's a generalist. So I'm then able to lean on partnerships specifically that have that, specialist knowledge, gives me that, time, which everybody knows is pretty precious. It's our biggest luxury. Means I can scale, can be really agile in a really, really small environment, hit that ground running. And I think, from those experiences, it's really hard to thrive in that chaos. And just to be able to go to someone that you trust and you can rely on, that you've built either in that company or a person, can really provide that extra knowledge that you need. I think it's just about picking and maintaining those right partnerships to help you kind of fly very quickly at the start in that very quick, small environment.
Of course you can. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think it is about the scaling. And one thing I think people take for granted is that when we automate a process, so you automatically get your pass downloaded onto your phone, that's no longer a person having to book an appointment to get their photo taken to be applied to a plastic card that needs to be added to an access control system. And when you have a portfolio the scale of Landsec, that efficiency is huge and actually starts to provide a return on investment very quickly. So I think I can see how you can leverage technology to be a bigger company than you actually are, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think when we put together Myo, obviously, Ollie, we lent heavily into the partnership model. And is that still an approach that Myo are taking? I mean, have you insourced any more since I was involved, or are you still sort of partnership driven? Because obviously, like Dan sort of said, there's such a scale game that you want to keep it as efficient as possible, don't you?
Yeah, and I think there's always a debate of what is it you self-deliver and what is it you partner on in terms of solutions. And that's everything from kind of operational people on the front desk right the way through to your tech solutions and right the way through to agents and, you insourcing or outsourcing. That's always the question to ask. I guess what we come back to is what is our core business and what are the things that we can excel in and differentiate in by owning that IP or delivering that ourselves. And then where can we partner with best in class to actually then deliver those experiences, but make sure that also keeps moving forward in terms of innovation. Because the risk is that you can self-deliver a product and it might be fantastic the day you launch it, but it's probably going to become out of date faster than ever. And so you've got to partner with someone who's also got quite a clear roadmap of where they're going in their product evolution. And I think that's one of the challenges is just trying to make sure you're on board with the right partners who are heading in the same direction. And one challenge we have is as a multi-sector investor, we've got offices and workplace, but we also have a large retail portfolio. And ideally, we want partners that we can work with across sectors. But of course, the customer demand is quite different. So, if you're a consumer in a shopping center, your needs are probably quite different to a day-to-day employee in an office building. And then what about the ground floor retail in our London offices? So there's a bit of a mix of different needs there. And it's trying to work out who can actually then deliver those different solutions to meet that single need, because we don't want to be going out and procuring lots of different partners if we can avoid it, because you've then got to look at who's your product owner internally. Have they got the right expertise? Are they able to look at how that drives forwards? Can they deal with the problems? And actually what you want from a partnership is knowing that it's someone you can trust and rely on who's going to sort out a problem when things go wrong. Because we all pretend it's all perfect all the time, but in reality, there's always problems. We know that.
Yeah, no, I strongly agree. I think, Dan, sort of segueing into the next question for you is, in the article I spoke about the importance of keeping things simple, which Ollie's spoken to a bit, you've spoken to a bit of automation. But, in smart spaces yourself, with the amount of integrations you have, the amount of partnerships you have, how do you keep that simple internally for yourself? And then how in turn does that positively impact your customers?
Well, it's down to people, really. It's hiring the best-in-class software developers, the best-in-class project management, best-in-class customer success. And actually, they make it all look remarkably easy, to be honest. And I cannot believe they built this stand and integrated this stand last night. Some of our competitors in the market would take 6 months to integrate with the Simtronic lights, and we had the Simtronic lights integrated within an hour of this morning, and it's absolutely breathtaking, and it's how I sleep at night because I rely on such good people. So sorry to make it something so boring, but that's the key. The other thing is, we employ people. So our values at Smart Spaces are that you're passionate, enthusiastic, you care and conscientious, and that you're personal and respectful. And the passionate, enthusiastic, everyone we employ loves doing what they do. So when they badge and the door opens, or they tweak a setting and the light changes, they get really excited about it. I know it's geeky, but we're geeks. There's a lot of us in the room, we love it. We know Ed is, certainly. And that's what it's all about. And because they have that energy and they bring that energy, they get the job done. And when me and my brother started the business, one of the reasons we started it is we used to watch the news and it'd be like, oh, the NHS has just blown 6 billion on a software platform that they can't deploy. And we're like, we would love to get like £10,000 to put into a software platform, and we guarantee we would deploy it. And we thought, what is the bar that low that actually just delivering something that's functional, you know? And so yeah, it sort of inspired us to start. And it really does come to, again, another boring one, but get the job done. So many overpromise on a PowerPoint and never actually really achieve a tangible product that gets into the hands of the user. And I think the way we sold Smart Spaces to Landsec was taking them to buildings and showing it in use. And they thought, oh, it works, brilliant, great, let's go.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I think that an important message here today is that, you know, tech shouldn't replace people. Tech sort of makes people's lives easier. It enables people to do different things that require people. You know, you can take a job away that could be automated, but ultimately you then want to redirect those people to do something often that involves people, and that's where it's most important. So yeah, I massively agree with that. I think a question for Joe. So with general people, have you got some examples of where partnering's helped you to become more operationally efficient?
Many. I think, you know, from some of the things that have already been mentioned, space management tools, you know, meeting room bookings, access controls, anything that can be automated without also losing that human experience for the customer. We also have used managing agents previously for, you know, financial operations, things that can be automated in terms of invoices, payments, etc. You've also then got anything from an FM perspective that really helps us on a day-to-day. And I can't be moving at a pace that I need to be moving and opening and taking on more buildings and saying to the team, you know, you've got to do all of these manual processes, but I also need you to concentrate on this project and these sales and these KPIs. It's just not going to help. And I think with that automation, it just gives us on a day-to-day operationally so much. It gives me much more for the team. That gives me a happy team, a productive team. So there's day-to-day without tech, you know, and I know there's more. You've told me, and I'm sure you can open my eyes to lots and lots, but you know, we need the basics at the moment where we're such in that startup scale up position, you know, as we grow, like you said, or you said earlier, in terms of kind of for the future, how do you future proof knowing what you've got? Because ultimately there's already going to be something that's already grown, essentially. It could be an app that you've launched, and just keeping ahead of that on a day-to-day, I think is the biggest thing. And making sure really you've only got one port of call for that, for the team. Giving someone, you know, 10 different logins for X, Y, and Z, or, you know, this is really fun and this works, but it's making sure you can circle all of that back. And it does actually make their lives easier on a day-to-day.
And so, Ollie, to expand on that, what's the biggest operational challenge your team sees at Landsec?
Where do we start? Well, I guess it depends on what time frame you're talking about, is one way to think about it, and then what's kind of critical and what's less critical. So I guess we set out a net zero carbon target ambition, and we're investing £135 million at the moment into our existing assets to decarbonise those assets. So air source heat pumps, replacing gas boilers, but actually looking at energy efficiency, and looking at how we can drive better performance in our assets. And clearly with oil price shocks alongside climate change challenges, if we see that as a major priority. Second to that, I guess, is just that continual consumer and customer expectation on experience. How do you deliver that in the right way? And I guess the way I often think about it, and it's not always a positive experience, but Terminal 5 at Heathrow, you give people the choice of you check in online, don't speak to a person, hopefully get through security reasonably quickly, through to the more personalized personable, meet an individual, they tell you where to go, you go through a relatively seamless at times process, but it's much more of that handheld experience. And I guess if we sort of play that out as to how we think about our buildings operating and how we want our guests, clients, and customers to experience our buildings, that's, I guess, how we're thinking about that. And we're definitely not there yet. And then I think a last part to that probably is just how do you stay ahead? And one of the challenges is that investing into real estate is very expensive and tends to be quite long term. So if you've got an existing portfolio of 6 million square feet, that throws off a rental income, but actually you've got to then look at how you keep future-proofing those buildings and make sure they're going to meet the needs of tomorrow. And whether that's integrating smart space apps, you've got to start changing all of the access control readers. All of these things come with a CapEx bill attached to them. And it's trying to work out, well, what are the priorities and what are the things we need to do first? How much does it really cost? Because you can be sold the dream on a PowerPoint of a flashy solution, but are you really solving a problem? And I think that's, I guess, the big ask is that people don't just throw sort of flashy things at us, but actually think about what's the problem they're trying to solve and what's the value proposition of that. Because if it's not going to create value or deliver efficiencies, then it's probably not something we want to spend much time on.
I think following on from that, a question for all three of you actually is often I talk about, I feel like tech and customer experience now are intrinsically linked. It's what brought me to Office Ready Tech. But actually, when I speak to different landlords, operators, I get quite a mixed response actually on the amount of impact they feel like tech can have on a customer's decision making, whether it's acquisition of a customer, retention of a customer, which is key. So for all three of you, and obviously Dan, you're going to be incredibly biased, how important do you feel like tech is day to day for a customer and the impact it can have?
I think
let's go last with Dan because we know his viewpoint already. I'll answer for him very.
I think on a day to day, the basics have to be there, right? So that's all standard tech. I think that there's so much more to that can help from a reporting, data output perspective, which, for someone like you, it's going to be even more important. Your 6 million square foot versus my 500,000 square foot, it is quite different. But I think it ultimately it's still about navigating that efficiency for the customer experience and the team, more importantly than anything else. So who's next? Not the bias one.
Yeah, and I'll just add to what Joe said. I think brilliant basics. So if you don't get the basics right, then the kind of cherry on the top doesn't really matter. Because if it's not working day to day, then people just get frustrated and fed up. And you might have a brilliant experience and a brilliant moment, but that's completely washed away by other issues, whether that's the Wi-Fi failing or those brilliant basics just have to be right day in and day out. So I think you've got to get that absolutely stable and robust. And then you can start to look at how you optimize over and above that to deliver those enhanced solutions. What does the customer really think of that? I guess it comes back to the individual user. And, as is life, some people will be super tech savvy and want everything immediately that's cutting edge, and others will still be walking around with a Nokia 3210 playing Snake. So you've got to be able to adapt to those different user needs. And actually, I think, a big principle for us is thinking about inclusive design. So one thing you have to do is make sure that you can meet those different needs and not just make the assumption that everyone is super tech savvy and everyone is able to just have an iPhone, understand the QR codes, take an Apple Wallet. You have to be quite hands-on and actually helping explain to people why do it, how do it. And that in itself is quite time intensive. But that's what will drive adoption rates and that's what will drive buy-in. And then that's also what ultimately will create value because they'll start to see value in what they can use. But I think so often we send out opportunities or new products and people say, okay, great, but it's kind of passes them by and that's a missed opportunity.
Dan, how important is tech
Just to add,
Oh,
right?
sorry, Joe, go
Just
expand.
to add on, quite a mixed portfolio from flexible offices, service offices, and then into light industrial. I have just launched electronic signature. Yes, I know, just launched. And we are still having tenants say, please print that so I can sign it. So you can put all of the solutions you want in. You still have to make sure that you're educating, I suppose, in a way, and giving them the knowledge and the power to actually understand why it makes their lives easier. Because some people don't know, and they really don't. And you're going from, maybe a seamstress or a silversmith to, a CEO of a recruitment agency. So that spectrum can be quite vast, especially I think from my portfolio, in essence.
Yeah, it's really fair, and I think that's the challenge we had as well at GP together, isn't it, Dan? In terms of messaging and making sure that the users understood the intention, really. But I'll let you answer. How important is tech?
Yeah. No, 100%. No, I think you've already got my answer. But no, look, let me put my customer hat on and say, if I was Landsec, why would I deploy the app? If I can enhance the day-to-day experience of every user of my building, make it more efficient, and get the app into the hands of every user that uses my building, I've now got a perfect 360 feedback loop on how they use my building. And as I roll out other services, I can roll them out and measure them and understand how successful they are. And we've seen in many a building that you deploy the app, you get 100% adoption by having Apple Wallet and have that ultra convenience where it works when the battery's flat, it works when it's in background mode. When we put a push notification out about a yoga event, we get 400% the attendance we had before we had that deployed, because everyone's got the app on their phone. Everyone's got the habit of using it every day. We call it the toothbrush effect. And the push notification makes it to a lot of people. So the most powerful thing it does is you can get customer feedback direct from the end user. And the problem as a landlord I've always felt, and it's been the same in our building before we deployed our own app within Smart Spaces HQ, is the landlord is disintermediated sometimes to the end user. They will talk to CEO, CFO, head of HR, office manager, who's quite a terse individual at the best of times, and they get tainted feedback. The feedback's not always what all the end users think. And I think you can then start to do NPS, which I know you're a big fan of, and get direct feedback on how your portfolio is really running.
Yeah, no, it's the tech savvy answer we all expected. But no, I agree. I think it's got a massive role to play, and I think it comes down to how you deploy it and then how you put it into operation and message that to the end users effectively. Final question for you all. What is the biggest single priority where tech is concerned for your business in the next 12 months?
No, okay. I think being in very fringe locations in London, for me, we need to make sure that we are up to standard, essentially, versus the rest of the London office market. People will come out to the fringe locations, for slightly lower price, but they'll still expect the tech that goes with that. So as we continue to grow, and quite rapidly, we need to ensure that we're up there, I think, and creating that efficiency all over.
Yep. Holly?
I think a single one's quite hard to pick, but I would say at a broader level, it's probably just looking at how we can rationalize and simplify our data and actually then start to draw meaningful insights from that. So we've got a vast amount of data and it's being collected, but actually what are we doing with the data? And I think that's the big challenge we have at the moment, is turning that into something that's useful and then taking action. I think the point about understanding the consumer as well, I think that's really important. So we're doing that across all of our portfolio, retail, office, everything, all the touch points we have with all consumers. And I think that makes a big difference, because no longer is a office decision being made by just a CEO and CFO. Actually, there's a steering committee who will be made up of a mix of different people from across that business, and they will all have a point of view on what they think is the right opportunity for them in terms of their new office or not. And so we have to be really attuned to that user group, where historically it used to be, well, how far away is the office from the CEO's house? How easy is their commute? That world is very, very rapidly shifting. And in a war for talent, that is going to remain the case for some time to come, I think.
Dan?
sorry to have to use the word on stage, but it's 100%, hopefully 1,000% productivity increase from leveraging AI. So our software teams already use it. So it's like we've gained, and we've been using it for some time now, but more and more of the staff are, it's a bit like Apple Wallet. You've got the ones that are like, oh no, I'm the best programmer in the world. I don't need AI to assist me. I don't need an AI assistant. And you've got the guy that's leveraging it. The others go, wow, he's getting his story points completed 5 times as quick as me. Show me that. Becomes viral within the business. I've probably just gained 50% of my development team again, just from them leveraging AI tools that we use to develop our product. So that's amazing for me. The return on investment I'm getting there. But the return on investment I want to give to Landsec and all of our customers is our head of AI is working on our analytics engine, where the problem we've got is a Landsec report doesn't necessarily look like a GP report. It looks like a workspace report. You all have your own ways of working, and we can't copy and paste your reports, which is really frustrating. So we're leveraging AI with our natural language querying to render the report exactly how you want it and not burden our developers creating custom reports or our support team having to render the reports for you. So from a customer perspective, it's mining the data and giving you insights. From our perspective, it's scaling quicker and having more headcount without necessarily employing more people, which we're always employing, but at a slower rate because the technology is helping us be more productive.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. We almost got through the whole thing without Dan mentioning AI. So
Sorry.
anyone who had 26 minutes on the sweepstake, see me after. But no, I'd agree. I think both Ollie and Dan is what I would have said. AI together with data. I think data's the big one. There is a sea of data out there. I think we're all collecting, some passively, some aggressively, but it's working out what to do with that, how to make it effective, and then how to turn that into action. So that would be my final thought. I think we're out of time. So no time for questions, I'm afraid, if anyone had any, although we're still about afterwards. So thank you all. Thank you, Dan, for having us. Thank you, Joe and Ollie, for joining us. And thank you all for coming. Thank you very much.